In this edition of 30 Minutes, Elderly Home Repair Project is kicked off, Office of the Ombudsman 2016 Year Report is out, and Attorney Zelena Barry featured at Criminal Law Lecture. All this and more ahead. Stay tuned. Hello, and welcome to another edition of 30 Minutes. I'm your host, Giselle Misudan York. The fourth installment of the Law Matters to You lecture series was held on Tuesday, June 6th at the University of St. Martin. The lecture featured attorney Zelena Barry, who gave the audience in attendance an introduction to criminal law.
Everyone has a right to freedom. They have a right to privacy. There are many other fundamental rights that people enjoy. And those freedoms and rights have to be respected by everyone, and that includes the government. At the same time, the government has an obligation to prosecute people who break the law. And that can cause a conflict between your right to, for example, freedom, to not be arrested, detained, and their right to prosecute and deny you that freedom in the interest of the case or the alleged crime. And the purpose of criminal law is to have rules that guide the balance between sometimes very conflicting departure points. And when we say criminal law, it's important to understand, because a lot of people with our influence from America, they get the impression that criminal law is law and order, SVU, criminal intent. And while I love SVU, that is not our system of law here in St. Martin. And there are some fundamental differences between the law in America and here. And without making it a lecture on differences, I want to highlight a couple but very important differences between the two systems. In America, for example, in a criminal court case, you're going to have the jury system, where the theory is you're going to have a group of 12 people, your peers, that's going to determine your guilt or your innocence. And there's been much literature on the topic of, well, are the 12 people sitting on a jury really your peers? If you are accused, for example, of tax evasion, and there are complicated laws, principles, maybe even arithmetic involved, and you have people on the jury that maybe come from the construction, they're primary school teachers, and while all are very intelligent and capable, the material can be so complex that it will go, let's just put it lightly, over the heads of these people. But those people will be the people tasked with deciding if you're innocent or you're guilty. Other issues you have with a jury system versus our system, which I'll get to just now, is that a jury has been known to fall prey to sensation, drama, racism, sexism, anything else. We even have another show on American TV called Lie to Me, where you see people are paid to help select these jury members to sway the vote in their favor or what they think their client would need. We don't have that. We have one judge that's going to make that decision, and that decision he will base on, or she will base on the law and the evidence is supported by the public prosecutor office in the case. And when we talk about judges, even there's a small difference between here and America, small being big, in that, except for example, the Supreme Court, who those people are appointed, the lower judges can be elected by people. And we've seen what happens on St. Martin when there's an election for our government. So can you imagine that the people that have to decide your innocence and your guilt are going to be elected by the populace? And, you know, there's enough literature showing that just before an election, somebody breaking a law may stand to have a higher punishment than somebody after the election has taken place because they want the votes. Come vote for me, I'm going to get on hard on crime. That is a risk you take when the judges are not appointed. In St. Martin, our judges are appointed for life. So the minute you're a judge, you're appointed until you die. And hopefully you do, then you don't have the influences of politics, you don't have the influences of a jury, it's just basically the judge is going to present the case. When we're talking about sentencing, there's also a difference there. In sentencing in America, for example, you hear some sentences that it almost seem to defy logic. You know, we out of the days of Moses and Methuselah and Moses and, you know, Noah, but you hear people getting 150 years. You hear people getting 286 years to serve concurrently. Most people ain't cracking 90 these days. So after 65, you know, it's like, well, even if you live, you know where you're going to be. And and so you have the situation when they say life is the possibility of parole and not parole. We don't have that here in St. Martin. When our laws, and I'll give you an example to show how absurd the numbers can become. There's an example of a gentleman. His name was Mr. Charles Scott Robinson. He got sentenced to 30,000 years in jail. Now, I think the days of the dinosaurs are behind us, but he got 5,000 years for 6 different counts, and it was pertaining to a child rape case. And I know there's people, of course, saying we should get some of those laws here because some of these rapists need to get punished. But I'll get to that just now. In St. Martin, we don't have those type of very elaborate sentences. Our sentences are basically, you could get a temporary punishment, which is in the sense of there's a defined amount of time, the minimum being 1 day, and the maximum being life. Now, life in St. Martin is life. The only time you're coming out is when the hearse or the coroner take you out. So if you get condemned at 45 and you only live to 46, well, that's your life. If you get condemned at 45 and you happen to be one of those who could live 30,000 years, then you will be in there for 30,000 years, which I don't think is going to be the case. There are, of course, exceptions. After a significant chunk of that being served, you can ask for a pardon, but there are specific rules for how that would go. But one of the things I always hear is that our laws are not strict enough. We need stricter laws. These people getting away with anything. I see a lady shaking her head in the audience. But, oh, actually, that's a family member.
That was an excerpt from attorney Zelena Barry's lecture on criminal law. The full DCOM special of Ms. Barry's lecture will air in the near future. In other news, over the past several days, a message about a heat wave caused by an equinox phenomenon has been circulating the island. The message is being reported to have come from the local Met office. It turns out this is not the case. Cedric Peterson reports.
A message about a heat wave as well as potential sunstroke deaths by an equinox phenomenon that is being circulated by a number of social media users over the last few days or weeks, according to the Met Department of St. Martin, is a hoax, as this message did not originate from the department. The message warns recipients that this phenomenon will affect us in the next 5 days, to stay indoors, to frequently take their blood pressure, and temperatures are expected to rise to 40 degrees Celsius. 30 Minutes with Government spoke to meteorologist Cheryl LeBlanc at the Princess Juliana International Airport to get some more information about this hoax message and to get the facts as it relates to the current climate conditions locally and throughout the region.
I think it's a message that has been circulated around for a long time, and it has been further manipulated by removing dates, and it has been going around the local islands for a few weeks now. And we just want to inform the public that it was not issued by the Meteorological Department of St. Martin, as the message states that it comes from a Met office, but it doesn't say exactly which Met service, so it may have been from anywhere. The message also informs people that in the next 5 days that they should remain indoors and to take precautions, that the temperature is going to rise as high as 40 degrees C. From our data in St. Martin, we have not gotten to this point. Our highest temperature recorded was on June 6, 2010, as 35.2. Also, our maximum temperatures have not been showing an upward trend as some of the other islands in the Caribbean. They have remained within the normal range. So the only thing is that the climate prediction for the Caribbean indicates that nighttime temperatures over St. Martin and the Northern Caribbean is forecast during June to August this year, 2017, to be a bit warmer than normal. During the daytime temperatures, however, do not show the same indication. So the warmer, we are supposed to expect warmer nights, and for this, we ask people to take the necessary precaution for cooling during the days when it's hot and the humidity is high. people can feel hotter. The feel-like temperature is going to be warmer, and it will be more uncomfortable. So during these times, we expect people to keep themselves hydrated. And those who work outdoors, construction workers, people who work on the ramps at the airport, to take the precaution in protecting their skin from UV radiation. And just to tell the general public that please listen to credible information from reliable sources, the Ministry of Health, Disaster Management, the Meteorological Department.
Meteorologist Cheryl LeBlanc of the Met Department, St. Martin.
That was Cedric Peterson with the St. Martin Met Office. "2017 Atlantic Hurricane Season Storm Names: Arlene, Brett, Cindy, Dawn, Emily, Franklin, Gert, Harvey, Irma, Jose, Katia, Lee, Maria, Nate, Ophelia, Felipe, Rena, Sean, Tammy, Vince, Whitney. The season officially begins on June 1st and will end on November 30th. Be prepared. Remember, it only takes one to make it a bad hurricane season." From the Office of the Ombudsman, the 2016 year report has been released. Dr. Nilda Ardern, Ombudsman for St. Martin, recently held a press conference where she shared some features of the 2016 report.
The year report 2016 differs a little from the previous year report because, as Mr. Duckens indicated, this is my last term. So this will be my last year report as well. As such, I included in the year report 2016 some extra features. As a new organization, we established the institution step by step. One of the aspects that we never reported on in our year report is our recommendations. And as such, there is a new chapter in this report after complaint handling covering the recommendations. We have included in this report the recommendations from 2013, the statistics, the type of recommendations, etc., etc. This chapter is a new chapter and is in fact a pretty large chapter, which makes this report a little heavier than the previous ones. As this is my last year report, I also introduced a chapter on an overview per ministry. While normally I discuss the complaints handled per ministry and give statistics, I compiled the main challenges of the various ministries in this report. Then the chapter of Constitutional Court, which is a regular chapter, this year that chapter is also a little larger because, as we all know, that on July 7, 2016, the Constitutional Court squashed a law which I brought forward for review in its entirety. So the content and the reasons for presenting that law to the Constitutional Court are outlined in the year report. It's very important. And last but not least, a new chapter in this report is the preliminary findings of an external, operational, and financial audit. As indicated, the institution was established according to a strategic plan, a 10-year strategic plan. While my term of office is 7 years, I decided to do a strategic plan for 10 years because I did not want the next ombudsman to start reinventing the wheel all over. The person have to hit the ground running, and as such the strategic plan is there for continuation. In the strategic plan we have that in 2016 a general analysis, a meta-analysis will be done of the institution as such. At the end of 2016 we commissioned an operational audit and a financial audit by a third party. How did we go about it? We invited 3 accountant offices to bid on term of references, and we selected one of them. While the operational and the financial audit are still ongoing, I thought that it was fitting to include some of the preliminary findings in my year report 2016. In the course of this month, the reports will be finalized, and of course, as soon as they are finalized, we will present it.
In news from the Ministry of VSA, the home repair project designed to assist the most vulnerable in our community to live in decent homes was launched on Monday, June 12th. The Department of Community Development, Family and Humanitarian Affairs, Youth Affairs, contractors, and students have all come together in a win-win-win project to benefit the community. The students will gain valuable work experience that will equip them with valuable experiences to enter the labor market as a skilled worker. In anticipation of the launch, the contractors and participating students met last week Thursday for an introductory meeting before repairs on the first 12 homes commenced.
It's days like today that actually make my job as minister rewarding. It's actually days like today that really give me hope for St. Martin's future. I hope that what we're doing here today will help to restore a bit of people's faith in humanity, our community, country, and maybe even a little bit more faith in government itself. I want to tell you a little story. So when I came in as minister, there was a gentleman that used to come to our office on a regular basis. Actually, it's a gentleman that Chris, our assistant in the cabinet, introduced us to. So he came into our office, and everyone in the administration building, this is the old administration building, clearly knew the gentleman because he was a regular visitor and always looking for help. So I said, okay, look, let's go to your house. He says his house had a problem. So I said, I want to see for myself, what is it we're actually talking about? The gentleman lived in a small room. You could see the zinc sheaths from his room peeled back. You could see sunlight all around the house. The bathroom was deplorable. When it rained, he had to put a plastic sheet over his bed so his bed wouldn't get wet. And it was just, it was heart-wrenching to see how some of the people in our community have to live. And so certainly then I came back to the ministry and I said, okay, look, here's clearly a person who has a problem. We need to find a way to help this person. But when you looked into it, the piece of the little room that the guy was living in wasn't owned by him. So that's a problem. He had to rent it from somebody, but the lease wasn't exactly clear. You know, in St. Martin that happens a lot, that people over time, they have sort of inherited or live in property that they may not have legal title to. So that means to have a proper lease for this small shack wasn't possible. And so our system didn't let us help him. So in the end, really, according to our governmental rules, there was nothing we could do to help the gentleman. But sure enough, come election time, somebody fixed his roof, and the guy had a t-shirt from a particular party. So what happened? He had to sell his vote, his dignity, for a roof over his head. And if you look at it, something is fundamentally wrong if that's what our people need to do to live with pride and with dignity. So with that, I tasked Ida to say, you know, look, how can we solve this problem? And I'll tell you, I couldn't be more proud. Ida has brought her charm, her charisma, her commitment to the community, the entire team to this project.
The Community Development Home Repair Project specifically catered to and for the elderly and physically disabled is yet another positive interministerial initiative between the Ministry of VSR and the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport. This project will eventually have a positive impact in various ways, namely the business community, the participating construction companies, and the students of the various participating vocational and other secondary schools will be giving back to the community. Our vocational students will enhance their skills as they get the on-the-job training as an intern at one of these participating construction companies, and students of other participating secondary schools will also gain experience and a better understanding of volunteer work by assisting in the post-construction phase of this project. Thirdly, and most importantly, the quality of life of our elders and the physically challenged or disabled will be enhanced as they will now be able to live in a safer home and eventually a safer environment. Opportunities for education to meet the labor needs are always promoted and appreciated. This is truly a great example of education on the move initiated by the Ministry of VSR. The current and future students of this project are encouraged to make use of this great opportunity, as sometimes opportunities may only come knocking at your door once in a lifetime. The Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, Ms. Sylvia Jacobs, thanks the business community, the participating contractors, and all of the students for giving back to the community and promoting education through work experience. The Minister also thanks the management, faculty, staff, students, and their parents of the various schools, as well as the staff of the Department of Youth for assisting in this year's BOP program and safeguarding opportunities for all students on the construction level. In closing, thanks to the Ministry of VSR and the Ministry of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, specifically through the Departments of Community Development, Family and Humanitarian Affairs, Education, and Youth, for embarking on this interministerial collaboration, which we are sure will create tangible results. Minister would like to convey her congratulations first and foremost for this initiative and this step, and she wishes students, contractors, both ministries, and the community in general much success in this endeavor.
2017 Atlantic hurricane season storm names: Arlene, Brett, Cindy, Dawn, Emily, Franklin, Gert, Harvey, Irma, Jose, Katia, Lee, Maria, Nate, Ophelia, Felipe, Rena, Sean, Tammy, Vince, Whitney. The season officially begins on June 1st and will end on November 30th. Be prepared. Remember, it only takes one to make it a bad hurricane season. And finally, the University of St. Martin, in collaboration with the Windward Island Teachers Union, hosted a lecture at the university on Wednesday, June 7th, with special guest speaker, renowned sociologist of education, Dr. Melissa Weiner. At the lecture, Minister of Education, Culture, Youth and Sport, the Honorable Sylvia Jacobs, gave a reflection on St. Martin's education system and decolonization.
I can remember also hearing a lot from the Honorable Rhoda Arundel, talking about language, talking about colonialism in education, etc., and being bashed for it because of a mindset of people that have been subliminally, what's the word? I just said it. Miseducated, but not even understanding that they have been brainwashed, that we have been brainwashed. So after completing my education here, which was Dutch and English and Dutch, started English and then Dutch. And our song says it, we're French and Dutch and speak English much. But in the discussion about even Dutch and English, we need to realize all three of these languages are colonial languages. And the nuances of our own St. Martin English, St. Martin English, is a mixture of all that plus a little bit of our African heritage as well as all the other heritages, because there was Spanish and Portuguese and God knows who else through these waters. But I remember as a little girl learning about our history, and it was the only thing that they taught us about the African part was the enslaved part. And so as children, we didn't want to hear that. We didn't want to hear how black we were, so we were grading each other in levels of blackness, feeling that the lighter was better than the darker, etc. Learned behavior. Education has a lot to do with that, and it's still perpetrated today. Some of our darker brothers and sisters still feel inferior, even though there is more of our history being taught and through the World Wide Web. We are not dependent on a class teacher or a curriculum to learn. So it was through my education at what they would nowadays call predominantly black college, but it was the University of the Virgin Islands here in the Caribbean, is where I learned to appreciate and love what I am. Yet, as you can see with the hair, well, you can see now, for a long time, and even my own dear departed mother, I would ball my hair ever so often. Why are you cutting off that nice long hair? The nice long relaxed hair, of course, to look like, which we have been trained to do. And even today, we as schools and school boards, the process takes long, but we don't have to wait for a law or a policy. We should recognize what is right and wrong. That whole debate about a child, whether they're allowed to be in school because of the texture of its hair or the hairstyle, we need to do away with these archaic, learned behaviors. So I welcome this discussion. Many of you may be shocked at what I'm saying, but I have been saying it, maybe not as loudly as Dr. Rhoda Arundel did, but I respect the good lady who I went to school with, by the way, and who has very good ideas, but we were probably not ready for them in that way at that time. However, I believe we are evolving, we are opening our minds, we are appreciating our various textures, colors, shades, hues, and learning more about ourselves so that we do not have to, in speaking about the enslavement period, speak of it with hate towards those who are here now. They are just the descendants, just like us. We need to recognize we've all played a role, or our ancestors have all played a role, but in neglecting to teach it, neglecting to talk about it, it doesn't disappear. And that subliminal anger that we all feel may disappear with the right education.
This brings us to the end of this edition of 30 Minutes with Government. For video on demand, you can visit the official website of the Government of St. Martin at stmartingov.org. You can also visit our Facebook page and give us a like. And don't forget to set your radio dial to St. Martin Gov Radio 107.9 FM. On behalf of the Department of Communication, I am Giselle Misudan York. We'll see you next time.